Hope you're okay. Welcome to another Training Tip Tuesday. Now, this week I'm going to follow on from what I did last week with the Nordic hamstring curl. So if you did see the Nordic hamstring curl video, this is going to make a lot of sense in terms of what we're talking about with eccentric loading and being able to create more force through the muscle, through the eccentric portion of the movement. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry. Go ahead and check out the other videos in the series. Also the Nordic hamstring curl video, and this is going to be a follow-on from that video with the the reverse Nordic hamstring curl or the Nordic extension. Okay, so I'm going to go through the movement classification, the muscles that we're targeting, how this is going to benefit you in the long run in terms of if you need to prehab around your knees and across the hips and stuff. Because this muscle that we're going to be targeting today doesn't necessarily become trained through conventional movements like squats or deadlifts, okay? So we're looking at really targeting this muscle, and we're going to be looking at building it up in a way that we can do at home if we don't have access to or availability of equipment, okay? So again, make sure you're staying safe with these exercises, you're staying at home, obviously looking after other people and thinking of others, not just ourselves, and making sure that we're staying healthy and strong. So we're going to get into it today, and we're going to be looking at the Nordic extension or the reverse Nordic hamstring curl, okay, reverse Nordic curl. Now we're primarily going to be targeting the rectus femoris, and the rectus femoris attaches above the hip and it attaches below the knee. So we'll typically see it if we look at a bodybuilder's leg, where the muscle that runs straight up the middle of the thigh tends to be quite a prominent muscle. It looks very much like a straight line running down parallel to the femur, crosses the knee, crosses the top of the hip. It is the only muscle in the thigh region at the front that crosses both the knee and the hip joint. So this is a muscle that we can train both through hip flexion but also knee extension as well. So we've got the availability to be able to train it through multiple movements. Now the exercise that we're looking at today, the reverse Nordic curl or the Nordic extension, we're going to train it from an eccentric loading portion, but we could also train it through a concentric portion as well with the use of a band or maybe a dumbbell, and it's going to help us increase attention through that eccentric loading. Okay, so the movement we're going to be looking at performing is going to be a knee extension and knee flexion. The knee flexion is going to come in on the eccentric portion. The knee extension is going to come in on the concentric portion as we come back up to the top. Okay, so the big thing we've got to be wary of here in terms of technique, we're looking at stacking the knee, the hip, the trunk and the shoulder and the neck in a straight line. So what I mean by that is when we get into position, we're making sure that we're staying with the knee, the hip, the trunk and the shoulders in a nice straight line. So as we perform this movement, we're keeping the tension through the quads, we're not allowing it to transfer into the lower back, we're keeping the core and the trunk engaged and everything staying nice and controlled together. Okay, the worst thing we want to do is lose the potential tension because we're flexing at the hip here, or we don't want to lose it and go into the lower back because we're overextending from the hips as well. Okay, so the big thing we've got to look at here is everything from the knee to the hip to the trunk and to the shoulders and the neck stays in line so we can keep maximal tension on the top of the thigh. Okay, so in terms of performing the movement, we're going to get set up. We've got a mat here. If you don't have access to a mat or a AirX pad, is another great tool that you can use. Don't worry. What you can do is you can use a pillow, for example, or a cushion or something that you can borrow from the sofa that could then help you with that movement, okay, and that kind of comfort upon the knees. Now, quick side note here, I'm not sure if there is someone that watches this video that could help out, whether having a plantar dorsiflexed or plantar flex position with the ankle or with the foot, whether that has a superior benefit to the movement, I don't know. But if anyone watches this and they do know, they can go ahead and comment whether it's having plantar flex or dorsiflex is actually a beneficial position with the feet and the ankle when we're performing it. So what we're looking at here is if we're going to go dorsiflexed, we're going to go, plantar flexed, we're going to have the feet, the top of the foot rest on the floor. If we're going plantar flexed, we're going to go, let me get it right, plantar flexed, toes down, dorsiflexed, toes up. Okay, so from here, everything's stacked up, nice and controlled. You can go hands across the chest. From here, nice and controlled, keeping everything locked in and in line. We're going to lower down towards the floor, leaning back. So again, this is the reverse Nordic curl. We're loading up the thigh here. From there, we're going to use the thighs to bring ourselves back up. Okay, so what I can feel as I'm going through this movement, because everything is locked in place, we're automatically in a hip extended position. Okay, hip flex position is where the angle at the hip is shorter. Hip extended is where it's at its greater position. Okay, so we're already extended here at the hip. So the rectus femoris at the top here is already extended, so it's in a lengthened position. We're already in a relatively lengthened position here with the rectus femoris crossing the knee joint. Now what's going to happen, as we go down, we're increasing the angle at the knee joint, which is increasing the tension through the rectus femoris as we go down towards the floor. So this is where we're loading up on that eccentric portion, okay? So the rectus femoris is lengthening, but lengthening through a greater range of motion, increased muscle tension because of the weight of my body, but also because we're lengthening under tension, okay? So the more tension we're putting it through as we lengthen, the greater the force that we can load up and create and strengthen that muscle. So again, nice and controlled, bringing myself back up. So we're loading up the quads, we're loading up the rectus femoris here. We're very isolating this movement, very much isolating this movement. And we're going to look at eccentric control. We'll look at maybe 3 to 4 seconds here is going to be great for improving that strength. 1 to 2 seconds coming back up is great for that contraction or concentric phase. And we're going nice and controlled down, loading up the rectus femoris, and then from there, pulling ourselves back up. Again, for me, probably a personal preference, I like to have the toes plantar flexed. So as I get towards the bottom here, I can just feel a little more range of motion, and I can allow myself to control the movement through my quads a little bit more, as opposed to feeling it in the top of my foot, okay? Or the back of my foot, should I say. So as I'm going down here, nice and controlled, getting that extension of the knee, feeling the tension through the rectus femoris, and then pulling them back up. I certainly feel it a lot more through my left side because of a weakness in my rec fem on my left side compared to my right. And it may be very different to you, whether you feel it more in the right than the left, whether you feel like you can't go very far and then you have to come back up. That's just a sign that we need to strengthen this muscle. Okay, so it's a great exercise to be able to say, this is a little bit of a weakness that I have and that I need to work on. Okay, so be very wary of how far you go and how controlled you go as well. That's going to be the next issue. If you only go this far, but you can feel like you're loading up, great. And then just concentrate on bringing it back. Okay, in terms of repetitions, I'd probably say 2 to 3 sets of maybe 8 to 15 reps is going to be great here. The other thing you're going to find is the pump and the kind of fatigue that you get from this exercise through your quads is going to be huge. So even if you don't have access to equipment, training this exercise for your quads is going to be great for strengthening up your lower body. It's going to be great for protecting the knees and kind of like a prehab exercise. This is also used in rehab as well for anyone that has issues with knees or quad activation. A lot of physios will give this exercise for their clients that they can do at home with minimal equipment. Obviously, we only need a mat here. So in terms of common faults that we want to look out for, I did already mention a couple. The first thing we've got to look at is making sure that we don't go too far. So if we feel like this is as far as we can go, we obviously go as far as we can and then come back up. Trying to just force the movement and go as far as we possibly can for the sake of going as far as possibly can is only going to lead to dysfunction in terms of losing it through the hips, and we're not going to be able to control the movement effectively. So we want to be able to get a nice straight line from the knees, the hips, through the trunk to the shoulders. We go as far as we can go. As soon as we've gone as far as we can go, we pull back up. We use the quads to actively pull ourselves back up to the top, keeping everything stacked up. Again, what you do with the foot is entirely up to you. You may feel like you can get better control with a certain position as you pull yourself back up. So the first one was obviously range of motion. The second fault or common area that we want to try and avoid is as we're going back, allowing the hips to go down, but the upper body to stay straight. This may well be, and again, this may be something that someone who knows the movement a little bit better than I do would be able to comment and say that actually if we allowed this position here, we're actually just kind of starting as a base position and we could progress from that to keep everything stacked up. It would be something for someone with a little more of a physio background who could instruct us there. But what we're looking at here is keeping the knees, the hips, the trunk and the shoulders all locked in, so we can go back controlled and bring it back up to the top controlled. Okay, so big common errors there is make sure we're keeping everything nice and stable and in line. And the second thing is we're going to a range of motion that you can work through, progress upon that and build up and go a little bit further each time, okay? Sets of 8 to 15, 2 to 3 sets. You may be able to get another set out of 4. Obviously go with what works for you and your ability. And that is the reverse Nordic curl or the Nordic extension. All you need is your body and a mat or an RX pad or a pillow or cushion that you can then get into position and perform the movement. So I hope this video helps. Again, we're kind of in a position where we have to use what we've got available to us, and the Nordic extension and the Nordic curl that we did last week are going to be great exercises that you can do for your lower body to strengthen up your hamstrings and your quads, but also protect your knees, protect your hips, okay? We're in a time where sitting is going to be a lot more abundant, a lot more prominent, and we need to protect our legs, protect our knees, protect our hips, and protect the rest of the body as well. So they're great exercises that you can do. So thank you very much for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any comments, questions, or concerns, send them through on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever you see the video. I'm happy to get back to you with more information. If there is anything that you've seen in this video that you think, you know what, that's great, but I want to know a little bit more, send us a message or get in contact with us and we'll happily help you out with those exercises or those comments. Again, thanks for checking out the video. I'll see you all next week for another Training Tip Tuesday. I'm Andy Chadwick. Peace out.